So today I'm sharing my top 6 stalker romance recommendations, and I've also got a couple of books that I'm going to throw in at the end that I haven't read yet but is absolutely on my TBR, specifically because they are stalker romances. So let's get stuck in. So the first one I'm going to talk about today is Grieved, Lost by Adelaide, Forrest, and this is a Mafia romance and it's book 3 in the Blandy crime syndicate. In this one we're following Kala and Riker, and Riker has been stalking Kala for 4 years. He's completely obsessed with her. Now at the start of this book, Kala is actually married. She's married to a police officer and she has 2 children with him. And he unfortunately is a dirty cop and basically works for the Mafia. Now when he first kind of got into bed with the Mafia, if you like, Riker was assigned to just do a bit of a background check on him, make sure he's legit from a Mafia perspective, and that he could be trusted by the Mafia to do their dirty work. And as a result, Riker does a bit of stalking, and from the moment he sees Kala, he absolutely falls in love with her and becomes obsessed. And he spends the next 4 years stalking her and preparing for the day when she will finally be his. Now, he doesn't really have any intention of doing anything to the husband or kidnapping her while she's still married. But he's just lying in wait and waiting for his opportunity when either the policeman screws up or he dies. And 3 years into his stalking, he gets the opportunity he needs when the husband is killed in the line of duty. And he allows Kala 1 year of mourning, but when that year is up, he comes for her, and boy does he come for her, and he's completely prepared to take over her whole life. He basically kidnaps her, takes her kids, threatens her, like basically forces her to do his bidding, because he sort of said, you don't want to upset the kids, do you? They will be scared unless you kind of be seen to be going along with this and enjoying yourself here, and essentially he completely railroads her into kind of agreeing. But he absolutely is obsessed with her. He's massively in love with her. He's not going to harm a hair on her head, but he is absolutely going to get what he wants, which is her, like lock, stock and barrel. She has to become his in every single way because he's so obsessed. But he absolutely dotes on the kids, and this is one of the things that is really, really sweet, and one of the reasons I think Kala falls in love with him, because he treats her kids like a little prince and princess. He decks out their rooms in everything a kid could ever want. He completely spoils them rotten, completely wins the kids over, and in turn wins Kala over. The only thing I would say about this book, I like a dark hero, but I also like a dark hero who softens over time, and you get to see that he is a different person with the woman that he loves. But Riker never ever bends in this one. I've said this one before because I've spoken about this book a couple of times, but basically Riker never bends. She absolutely never gets her own choices. She can never have a conversation with him to rationalise and reason with him to try and get anything that she wants for herself, and he forces her at every turn, so she never ever gets a choice, and he never ever folds or breaks or bends for her in any kind of way. And I did find that a little bit frustrating, but still he has all of the hallmarks of the perfect stalker, is obsessed with her, knows every single detail about her, and like I say, has been waiting, planning, plotting to completely make sure that she becomes his, and boy does he pull that off. Then the next one is one I read at the start of the year, and this is Where Violets Bloom by Daisy Jane, and it's book 1 in the Men of Paradise series. In this one we're following Van and Violet. Now Van is our stalker and he's also a police officer. Now Van is a very good police officer, he's got a very tight-knit group of friends, but he is also a little bit troubled, and he has a secret where he will basically go out and frighten people deliberately and then kind of leave. So as an example, he will pretend to mug somebody, hold them at gunpoint, pretend to mug them, demand their wallet or keys or something like that. When the person hands it over, he will then run off with it but kind of leave the item behind. So essentially the person is left with all their possessions. He doesn't actually steal from them or anything like that, but he just leaves them really fearful and frightened, and he gets off on frightening people. And psychologically, he claims it's because he thinks that people don't understand how good their life is, and he wants to shock them into realizing just how good they've got it. Anyway, that's kind of what he's been doing all this time, and his friend is quite worried about him, and he's like, you know, you can't keep on doing this, especially as you're a police officer. It's not great, is it? But one day he's in the park, he's staking out his next sort of victim, and he happens to spot Violet, and the moment he sees her, he becomes absolutely obsessed with her, and for the next year he completely stalks her. Every waking spare moment that he has, he is following her, watching her. He even installs cameras in her bedroom so he can see her coming in and out of the shower and getting dressed and all of that good stuff, and learns everything about her. The thing is, Violet has got a very, very difficult family home. She is a grown woman, she's actually a teacher, but she still lives with her parents and her sister, and she is not treated well at all. And she's been saving money so that she can go out and buy her own place. But her father is quite violent, and one day he basically pushes her down the stairs, she hurts her leg, and she has to use all of her savings to pay for her medical treatment, and this basically puts her back at square one. So she is very, very scared and kind of trapped in her family life, just desperate to get out. And also her work life is not that great either. While she loves teaching, there is quite a predatory, horrible headmaster who puts her in compromising positions, suggests that maybe she should do him sexual favours, and just generally makes her life a bit of a misery. So she's not in a great place herself. But Van, although he's been stalking her, doesn't 100% realise what's going on here until one day he sees her. She's got a black eye, it's clear that someone's hit her, and he decides that he's going to swoop in and basically rescue her. And he does that by kidnapping her and taking her back to his house. However, straight away he tells her who he is, what he's been doing, and actually confesses that he's been stalking her for some time. And so this is a really, really odd kind of stalker romance. Van is absolutely super sweet, massively in love with Violet, will do anything for her, is totally honest with her the whole time, and he just wants somebody to love him. And he basically helps her confront all of her demons, helps her overcome the problems that she's had with her family, but ultimately just takes his stalker tendencies, switches it to obsession, switches it to protection, and in the end you have a couple that are very, very close. They know everything about each other, and Van will do absolutely anything it takes to make sure that she's safe and cared for. So then the next one is The Danger You Know by Lily White, and this is book 1 in the Shadow duet, although book 2 has never come out. I think it's sort of planned and penciled in, but I don't think Lily White has ever written it or released it. But in this first book we are following Ari and Adelaide. So Ari is an assassin, and he has been tasked with killing Adelaide's father, and the night that he goes to kill him, he believes that the house is empty. He kills the father, he's making his way out of the house, and unbeknownst to him, Adelaide is actually in the house, and she comes across her father's dead body, and Ari makes the mistake of turning back to look into the room before he kind of like completely leaves the house, and he sees Adelaide in her grief over her father's body. And this is a pivotal moment for Ari. It's a moment of regret and guilt, and he realizes that he's kind of left a young girl without parents because her mother has already passed away, and he takes it upon himself to keep an eye on her over the next few years, because when he first kills the dad, she's only in her teens, so I think she's around 16 or something like that, and he decides that he's going to keep an eye on her and make sure that she's okay. And so begins a very, very long obsession with her as he stalks her and follows her and makes sure that she's okay. Now, because she's sort of like without parents, and also she's a teenager, she kind of goes off the rails a little bit after this point, and she starts hanging out with the wrong people, dating the wrong kind of men, going to the wrong sort of nightclubs and pubs and stuff like that, and she is constantly getting herself into trouble. Unbeknownst to her though, Ari is completely onto this. He's following her, he's watching her, and he repeatedly over the years gets her out of sticky situations. She doesn't even realise he's getting her out of them, and also making sure that any men who are doing anything to her that they shouldn't be, or that aren't necessarily good for her, he's kind of disposing of them along the way as well. Now he is quite content to take a step back, just watch her and to, you know, just keep an eye on her, and even to the point where she's a grown woman and she meets a man, falls in love and gets married to this man, and he basically watches her get married and is perfectly, like I say, happy to let her get on with her life. But after 6 more months of this marriage, he starts to realise that all is not as it should be and that her husband is not treating her well, and it gets to the point where he can't take it anymore and he decides he's going to step in, take control of the situation and get her away from her husband. But of course he is a bit of a psychopath. By this point he's become absolutely obsessed with her. He's got like a bit of a shrine to her in his house with old ticket stubs and you know, photographs of her and all various things that he's collected over the years, and now he takes her basically captive. And so it becomes from a stalker situation to a captive situation, and they kind of like, you know, their relationship goes from there. I really love this one. It's very dark. Ari is very dark, and it is quite a twisty sort of situation, but thoroughly enjoyed it and gave that one 5 stars as well. Then another one, really dark and twisty one, is Take Me With You by Nina G. Jones, and this is a standalone book, and the couple in here is Sam and Vesper. Now Sam is very troubled, and he has spent quite a lot of his time stalking people and making their lives an absolute misery. And so what he's been doing is he stalks couples that appear to be happy. He kind of goes into their houses, he moves stuff around, he takes things, he installs cameras and stuff so he can keep an eye on them, and he waits for the perfect opportunity to go into the house, tie up the husband, the man, the boyfriend, and do horrible things to the female character, and then he'll kind of pretty much ruin their lives and then disappear, because he kind of gets off on just basically making people completely like afraid and scared and just, you know, ruin their lives. And he's been doing this for a while, so we know he's not a good person, and it starts very much from a place that we don't like Sam at all. But then he spots Vesper and he becomes obsessed with Vesper and her boyfriend. So she lives with her mum. She's got a younger brother who has learning difficulties, and she's his main sort of carer, if you like. She spends a lot of time with the brother helping him, but she's also got a boyfriend, and Sam basically spends a lot of time observing her. He can't believe that she could possibly be as good as she appears. He doesn't kind of believe that she loves her brother as much as she appears to, and he basically sets his eyes on making her life a misery. So this is the stalker situation where he very much takes his time to observe, watches from the bushes at night, installs cameras, and also nips into the house when she's not there and takes things and moves things around and stuff like that. So she's starting to feel a bit creeped out. Something's not quite right, but she's not sure what. But it comes to a bit of a head, and Sam has to escalate his timeline a little bit because the boyfriend actually proposes to Vesper, and he's like, no, I'm not having any of this. I'm going to ruin their perfect evening when they've just got engaged and go in. But it speeds up the timeline a little bit, which basically also means that the brother is in the house when this goes down, and because of this, Vesper is prepared to do anything to protect her brother, and out of her mouth comes the words, take me with you. So please don't do anything in this house, please don't do anything to the people in the house, take me with you and we'll deal with whatever this is away from this house. And Sam is completely thrown by this, but takes her up on the offer, and he basically takes her from the house and takes her back to where he lives, but he has absolutely no idea what to do with her. And so he ends up putting her into this kind of like shed that he's got in the woods, turns it into like an accommodation of sorts, and she becomes somebody who is locked in to this small space with him as her only visitor for months and months and months. And over this time, I think Nina G. Jones did a brilliant job of getting you to not only fear and hate Sam and not see how he can be redeemed, and slowly over time, through the eyes of Vesper, starting to warm to him, understanding him a little bit more, and ultimately somehow manages to persuade you that these two should be together. And the way that it's resolved, the way that, you know, it's resolved that they end up being able to be together is really, really well done, and thoroughly enjoyed it, although it is extremely dark and twisty. So please check your trigger warnings. Like with all of these, any books that I recommend, they're usually pretty dark, because if they're not dark, then they're at least Mafia, so they're usually dark, some sort of dark content. So please always make sure you check your trigger warnings. Then the next one is a little bit lighter, but this is a Mafia romance, and it's Stolen Touches by Neva Altaj, and this one is book 5 in the Perfectly Imperfect series, and we are following Mylene and Salvatore. Now Salvatore is the Don of the Cosa Nostra based in New York, and he's got a rule that no one goes into his city without his permission. And Mylene is basically a Mafia princess from another family in Chicago, and she is in New York because she is studying to be a nurse, and she's gone to work in a hospital in New York. Now she thinks Salvatore's not going to know she's there. Surely it's not really a rule that needs to be followed. She is absolutely no one. She's gone there to be a nurse. She's not involved in the Mafia life at all, and so she's kind of like hiding under the radar, if you like, but really doesn't understand the kind of jeopardy she has actually put herself in by going there without Salvatore's knowledge. Anyway, of course, their paths cross one day when he is coming out of the hospital and she is in the car park helping a couple deliver a baby. She turns to him and asks for his jacket. He immediately is attracted to her, is intrigued by her and wants to get to know her. And he is also a bit of a psychopath, we find out, a bit obsessive compulsive, and he starts up a bit of stalker activity. He basically learns everything about her. Again, sets up cameras in her apartment, sends her loads and loads of flowers to her apartment, and her hallway and everything is completely crammed with flowers, and starts a bit of stalker activity towards her. Now the stalker activity doesn't really last that long, because he very quickly realises who she is. And this is a perfect opportunity for him to force her into a marriage with him and to move in with him, because he can absolutely legitimately go to her family and say, hang on a minute, Marlene's in my city, she didn't get permission, and I have the power then to punish her, punish you, potentially even kill her if I wanted to. But what I'm going to do to make it easier on everyone, I'm going to marry her instead. And so Mylene has absolutely no choice, completely falls into Salvatore's trap. But even once they are married, he is completely obsessed with her, and, you know, has this arrangement where he's sort of tracking her and makes her ring him every hour on the hour to make sure that she's okay and stuff like that. So his obsessive compulsive disorder towards her never really goes away. But like I said, the initial stalker part, where he's kind of watching her from afar before she realises it, doesn't last that long. But I wanted to throw it in here because I thought it was really a really great book, and I love Salvatore's character, and he is a stalker at the end of the day. Then a bit of a wild card, this last one that I'm going to recommend. It's one that I read recently. It's Liars Like Us by J.T. Geissinger, and this is book 1 in the Morally Grey series, and we're following Callum and Emery. Now in some ways it could potentially be seen to be a bit spoilery to tell you that Callum is a stalker, but I don't personally think this is a spoiler, because it's pretty obvious from the first page that Callum is not what he says he is, and he absolutely knows far too much about Emery for it to all be a coincidence that they have met and are together. So essentially what happens is in this one is that Callum is a multi-billionaire. He comes from a very, very rich and wealthy family, and can have anything he wants. But he set his sights on Emery, and Emery is the owner of a bookshop it's an independent bookshop that she inherited from her father, and she's got a small group of very loyal employees, but her business isn't really doing that well, and it gets worse when a big bargain bookstore opens just a couple of stores down, and her business then completely goes to shreds. And she takes her employees out for dinner one night and sort of says to them, I'm really, really sorry, the business is going under, I'm going to have to lay you all off, and I'm really sorry about this. And the next day, Callum comes into her bookshop and basically says, I overheard you talking last night, I know your business is going to fold, but I'm going to offer you $10 million if you basically marry me. And he claims the reason that he needs to get married is because if he doesn't get married before the end of the year, his father is going to disinherit him and all the money he's got will disappear. So this is the basis on which he kind of like, they draw up a contract and agree to get married, so that she can save her business and continue to employ her employees, and he can basically get his inheritance. And that is kind of the basis from which this book is. But we very quickly understand and know that this is not 100% true. Callum's been keeping his eye on her for quite some time. He's become very obsessed with her. He knows everything about her, down to how she likes her coffee, what she eats for breakfast, and literally everything about her. So it's fair to say that he is 100% a stalker. So I wanted to throw it in here because it's slightly different to some of the others, but it's a fantastic read. Really enjoyed it. I love JT Geisinger's books overall, and so I wanted to put it in this video. Right, so they're all the ones that I've read and then would recommend specifically as a stalker romance. But there's 4 that are on my TBR which have been recommended to me and are stalker romances, and I absolutely want to get to them. So I thought I'd mention them in here because if you've read any of these books yourself, I want you to comment in the comments box below and let me know if it's worth a read or if you wouldn't recommend. So the first one is Notice by K Webster. Now K Webster is an author that I've wanted to read for a long time, haven't got around to yet, so this might be a good way to dip my toe in the water and read one of her books. So this one is pegged as a dark stalker romance. It's got 4.4 stars out of 5 on Amazon. It's a fairly short read at 299 pages, so it wouldn't take me too long to get through, so that's the sort of length I like to read. And the blurb says that he didn't notice her before, but now he does. The shiny strands of gold in her silky brown hair, tiny crinkles between her eyebrows when she frowns, her passion for neatness. Once I focus on her, I can't take my eyes from my newest obsession ever. I need to know everything about her. Her past, her present, the way she takes her coffee, exactly how she smells after a spritz of perfume in the morning. She's perfect in every way and I was blind, but God, now do I see. I noticed the organised way she arranges her clothes in her closet, how she visits the same market each Saturday, the sounds of her breathing as I lie beneath her bed in silence. So he's not only a stalker, but he likes to go into her bedroom while she's sleeping, which is pretty creepy and sounds pretty good to me. So the next one I'm very interested to read is Mercy by Debra Anastasia, and this is part of a series. It's book 1 in the Mercy series. Now this one has got 4.4 out of 5 stars as well, and the blurb on this one says, he taught me to kill, murder is in my blood now. It runs through my veins, and though I hide the monster I see in the mirror with ink, it doesn't keep him from coming out. My street name is Mercy, but I never show any, except for her. I watch Becca, though she doesn't know. She saved me a long time ago, the day my father killed my mother. Her bravery turned her into a target. My father holds a grudge and knife with the same proficiency, and Becca is the focus of his hatred, and I'm the only monster who can save her. So that sounds quite dark and twisty. I like the sound of that one. Then the next one is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. So this is part of a duet, so There Are No Saints, it's a Sinners duet. But this one I believe is specifically about a serial killer, and it's got 4.2 stars out of 5 on Amazon. So this is Cole Blackwell values control. He's the hottest sculptor in San Francisco, wealthy, successful and respected. His only weakness is the dark impulse he carefully conceals. Mara Eldridge is nobody, broke and damaged. She works 3 jobs while creating paintings no one will ever see. A chance encounter throws Mara into Cole's path. When Mara escapes what appears to be certain death, Cole is intrigued. He starts stalking her, realising there's more to the struggling misfit than he ever would have guessed. Cole becomes obsessed with Mara, breaking the rules that keep his true nature hidden. Mara knows he's dangerous, but Cole is the only person who's ever recognised her talent. So I think from reviews and things that both of these are serial killers and they both become obsessed with each other. So that sounds like an interesting read, and I do enjoy Sophie Lark's books, so keen to read that one at some point. And then the last one is The Maddest Obsession by Danielle, and this is book 2 in the Maid series, and it's a Mafia series. Now, I've had this Mafia series on my radar for a while, and the reason I haven't read it is because I've not heard great things about book 1. People say that the rest of the series is really good, but book 1 isn't as good. And I am a bit of a completionist, so I do have to start book 1. That is my compulsion normally. I mean, sometimes I do read books out of order, but very rarely. And so I am tempted to skip book 1 and move straight to book 2, but let me know what you think. If you've read it, let me know if I should read book 1 first, if I could get away with reading book 2, because this one is like I say, a stalker romance, and it has 4.6 stars out of 5, so out of all of them it's got the highest rating as well. So this one says, she fears the dark, but he rules it. Her dresses are too tight, her heels too tall, she laughs too loudly, eats without decorum, and mixes up most sayings in the book. Little do most know it's just a sparkly disguise, there to hide one panic attack at a time. Nobody can crack Gianna's facade, no one anyway, until he comes along. Most see a paragon of morality, a special agent upholding the law. In the New York underworld, others know him as a hustler, a killer, his nature as cold as the heart of ice in his chest. Christian Alistair has always followed the life plan he'd envisaged in his youth beneath the harsh lights of a frigid, damp cell. With a proclivity for order and the number 3, he's never been tempted to veer off course. But perhaps one should never say never. One winter night and their lives intertwine. She hates him, his stone cold demeanour, his arrogance and too perceptive eye. But over the years, even as their games consist of insulting each other's looks and intelligence, she begins to live to play with him. Nowhere in Christian's plans had he ever prepared for Gianna. She's chaos embodied, not his type, and married, but none of that can stop his eyes from following her wherever she goes. All along, she doesn't even know that she's his frustration, his fascination, his maddest obsession. So that also sounds pretty good, and like I say, it's part of a Mafia romance series, so it's been on my radar for a while. So there we have it. If you made it this far, thank you very much for sticking with me to the end. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up, and like I said before, if you have read enough of these stalker romances, if you've got any recommendations for me, please let me know in the comments box down below. And if you want to see more content from me, remember to subscribe to the channel. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Stalker. Down to how she likes her coffee. You know, yeah. Has a moment of sort of guilt or doubt, or he has this moment of guilt or doubt or regret for him and all of his you know, all of his bad points as well. So if you haven't figured out by now, I absolutely love a dark romance, and there is nothing darker about a male, and there's nothing dark, let's start again. And I don't think there's many, and then I don't think a main, aside from a good Mafia romance with a forced marriage and arranged marriage, I love nothing better than a stalker romance. Stalker romance. Do you like a stalker romance? And I don't think a main male character can do many, why can't I say this?